This is your strange and beautiful life. Hi, everybody, and welcome to This Is Your Strange and Beautiful Life. My name is Erica J. Schmidt, and on my podcast, I talk to people who may or may not have had the chance to transform their lives into spectacular TED Talks. And today, my guest is Hollis Peirce. Hollis is a proud and coveted alumnus of Easter Seals Camp Marywood, where he rocked the unsinkable sailboats, among other things, with his posse of pals, the No Surrenders. Hollis was born with congenital muscular dystrophy, and early in his life, a doctor told his mother that her child would suffer from an inability to thrive. This is not what happened. Hollis ended up with what we call a lifelong case of thriving. He makes friends wherever he goes, and he's particularly tight with the peeps he's met through Ottawa's accessible sports and muscular dystrophy communities. Since his youth, he has been an avid roller hockey player, and he even founded the Ottawa Power Wheelchair Hockey League. He is known across Canada as an ambassador and advocate for accessibility and for reinvigorating society's common perception of disability. Also, he has his undergraduate and master's degrees in history. Also, in 2023, he launched the 21st Century Disability Podcast, a show with the mission to uncover the transformative power of embracing disability in our modern times. Hollis, what a dream guest. Welcome to This Is Your Strange and Beautiful Life. Thank you so much for coming. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Erica. Great to connect with you again.
Yeah, this is so good. I can't wait. This is really fun. This is our first virtual episode. It might be our first video episode if I can figure out video editing. So, yeah, this is like big time exciting. Yeah, so Hollis, are you ready for your first question?
I hit me.
Okay. So, could you describe what the word disability means to you, like in a general global sense, but also for you personally in terms of your own physical condition? And language is always kind of a thing in when we're talking about disabilities. And so maybe for the people at home, could you just let them know how would you like us to use language around disability in a way that feels respectful and empowering and humanizing?
Wow. That is you just knocked it out of the park on the first go. Okay. So I would say that disability to me is a very complex term, because it means something from both the inside and outside. Meaning, like, I realize that I myself have a medical condition that involves, my muscle strength is much less than the average human being. But I also am disabled by society as a whole. So I believe in what is called the social model of disability, meaning yeah, I do have a physical condition that is disabling me, but I am more so, a lot of these issues would be eliminated if the barriers surrounding my environment would be gone. For instance, if ramps
Yeah.
completely replace stairs, if
Uh-huh.
there are always accessible bathrooms around, and that kind of thing.
Right. Like it's like the world makes it that much better, that much worse, like that much more of a disability than it would be. Like it's just Yeah, how basic ramps are and just how, like, blind, if we're allowed to say blind still, people are to just, like, what a barrier one step can be, right? And
Yeah,
just, like, it's just a total
and
it's a deal breaker for you to get into places, right? And it's that extra emotional labor that you're like, "Okay, I wanna do this, I wanna buy this, I wanna hang out with my friends, but I can't. I have to, like, research a bunch of places and seem like demanding, even though it's like basic human right to be able to access things. And like the view of disability also is like difficult, like even on a relational level, would you say? Like socially, like just like our biases and stuff, like does that make the day to day harder?
yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, a lot of people, in terms of labels, I consider myself a disabled person. I'm not offended by the word disabled being placed ahead of person.
Mhm.
I think that the person first, campaign or whatever has its places, but in all honesty, I think I'm perfectly fine with calling myself a disabled person.
And
Yeah.
yeah, for people who aren't familiar with person with, but like there's a movement where it's like I'm a person with a disability as opposed to saying disabled. What's another example? Person with I don't know. I mean, you say diabetic, you don't say person with diabetes, I guess. There's
Yeah,
other
I think they should fall under the category of a person with a disability. But yeah, I am perfectly comfortable saying I'm a disabled man.
it's kind of a personal thing, right? Like people kind of want like people are frustrated. Like I've heard people say, "Oh, I can't keep track of what is PC, what is respectful."
Totally.
But it's kinda like, it's just a tiny bit of work to ask the person, like, "How do you want me" like, it's like pronouns, right? Like, "How do you want me to refer to you? How do you see your condition?" So it's kinda like case by case, I guess?
Totally, and I mean, I think, in all honesty, I think that people are a bit too sensitive these days.
Right.
I think, if you don't know the person and you call them a disabled person, but they prefer to be known as a person with a disability, I really don't think that they have the right to immediately jump on you
Yeah.
if you don't know them. So, you gotta get to know somebody before you can understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and I think sort of the quest or like there's sort of like a nervousness around like, "Oh, I better say the right thing or I'm gonna get like
Right.
canceled," and that creates more barriers too. So like just like conversations, open conversations on both ends, right? Like it's just I find especially in Quebec, the language is about 15 to 20 years behind just because of French. Like they still say handicapé, but I've met people in Quebec who are deeply respectful of people with disabilities, the disabled community, but they just don't have that sensitive like, it's just not it doesn't feel as important here as maybe in Ontario where it's been like there have been words that have been totally banned for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you are I don't know, I find, like, if you are that sensitive to language, you are slowing yourself down. For instance, you are creating your own barriers that, you can get by if you have just a little bit of patience.
Like, yeah, because we could get stuck on language. We could talk about language for, like, the whole interview if we
We
wanted to, but
we can talk about language all day,
yeah.
and it's, yeah.
It's important, but it's one element. So, yeah, don't get stuck on language, folks. But, yeah, so, like, can you tell us a little bit about your physical disability? You have congenital muscular dystrophy, which
Mhm.
you were born with. Well, I guess people are born with muscular dystrophy. This is the science section that Erica did not study science, but there are different
Value,
kinds.
Hollis.
You didn't know. Okay, so this is gonna be very, very what is that place called? The Mayo Clinic portion. Yeah, you guys can just Google Mayo Clinic information at the same time as this question, but there are different kinds of muscular dystrophy. Maybe we can tell people Hollis and I actually met at summer camp, Easter Seals Camp Marywood, which is this magical peninsula not far from my hometown of Perth, Ontario. Just it's like a dream. It was I was in lifeguard there for 2 years, and it was I learned so much. I met so many cool people, staff and campers alike, and it was really just very formative, life-changing place for everybody, I would say. But we mentioned Hollis's group of friends, the No Surrenders posse, and so I think by the time I was a lifeguard, Hollis it was like a teenager, so these guys kinda ran the camp,
You
and
kinda took over the place when we were there.
yeah, it was, like, just, like, super they had a huge presence, and there were a lot of the people Hollis's friends had Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, which is different from Hollis's condition because you're born with it, but, like, the kids will the babies, they will seem like, that you won't maybe notice too much of a difference, but they'll meet their milestones a little bit late. They'll sit up later, they'll
Mhm.
crawl, all this stuff later, and then they gradually their changes in their bodies until, they usually end up using a wheelchair around 10, maybe?
Yeah, they usually start to people with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, as you said, they are born with it, but they're not apparent until a few years down the line. As you say, they still crawl, they still sit up on their own, they even walk for a couple of years, but then they start to randomly trip and fall.
Right.
Anywhere between kinda 6 to 8
Uh-huh.
years old, and that is when, they tend to be diagnosed.
And they walk on their toes a little bit, maybe?
Yeah,
And then they have very, very strong calves at a certain
yeah,
their calves are very big.
people with muscular dystrophy definitely have well-toned calf muscles.
Yeah, I
I
remember
think
that.
people who are wanting well-toned calves should really just talk to people with muscular dystrophy in order to
Yeah, hot
learn
tip.
the new workout session.
Yeah, because calves are actually essential in preventing knee problems, everyone. This is another passion of mine is knee injury prevention. But yeah, so then by the time they're 10, in using wheelchairs, maybe doing a little bit of walking, transferring, and then by the time
Yeah.
they're a lot of those guys had in at Easter Seals Camp Marywood, they were in power chairs by like 13, 14, 15.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and then but they also it's sadly like, they don't live that long, right? Like
No,
25 to 30?
Duchenne's muscular dystrophy is it's just it progresses very fast.
Yeah, heartbreaker.
It is. It's heartbreaking. You know, you go from being a perfectly healthy child to, being fully in a wheelchair, in your, early adolescence and then, teenhood. And then you're often needing, respiratory assistance,
Yeah,
uh, in your early 20s. And then, the life expectancy of someone with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy is not long at all.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's sad. Some of the campers have died, or maybe many of them, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I remember, we were in the no surrenders group. A lot of us have passed away. Really, it's all about, there's a lot of it is, science, but also a lot of it depends upon attitude, surprisingly.
Okay. You
Um,
think, like, people, they lose, their will? They're just too
yeah,
tired?
I mean, not that they have a bad attitude about it, but, in terms of bad attitude, in terms of, willingness to adapt to change.
Right, because
Uh,
there is kind of more dramatic changes. In Duchenne's, But for you, like,
Yeah.
your change like, maybe you can describe how what your disability has looked like over the course of your life, because your changes have been a little less dramatic, right? Like, you
Yeah.
were born you I don't think you ever walked
I
or
no, I never had the
yeah.
ability to wash, and so I I mean, it's funny not funny, but I barely survived, birth,
Okay, difficult birth.
yeah, like, when I was born, with every contraction, my heart rate would just go down to
Oh,
almost 0,
okay.
so you're right. I've had a fairly similar ability my entire life. However, I could do some things a bit. So like I've lost the ability to do like fine motor skills, for
Okay,
instance. Like I used to be able to write with a pencil
okay.
a lot more easily. And I used to be able to, crawl my hand
Okay.
to, certain places, and, I mean, I still can in a small cases, like crawling my hand to my joystick,
Yeah.
uh, or, like, for instance, I remember when I was a kid, a friend of ours had this border collie who was, like, super well trained and
They're so
super
smart.
energized.
Uh-huh.
And I would sit on the couch and I would throw a tennis ball. And,
Oh, wow, okay.
when I say throw, I mean, I would get it off the couch.
Yeah.
I would roll it off the couch, and he would be so excited, and
Oh,
he'd
the
go
dog
get
would be
it, and throw it
pleased.
back, and bring it right back to my lap, and I'd throw it back again. And so I've also gone through some changes that are not really apparent to anyone that is not close to me. For instance, I lost the ability to chew and swallow a lot of foods that
Okay,
like, when I was 13, I had major back surgery because when you're someone with muscular dystrophy, and you go through puberty, your muscles don't have the strength to support the weight of your spine,
okay.
so you get scoliosis, and, back when I in my day, uh,
Yeah,
uh,
tell people how old you are maybe.
yeah, I'm 37 now.
Okay.
I had, a trach my vent, as you can see, or if you're not watching this program, I have a vent going into my tracheotomy, and so I've had a vent on my chair for about 3 years now. And that I mean, for a long time, even in my like, when I was going to, graduate school, I was breathing on my own, but, my muscles were progressing, you know, not obviously, but they were progressing to a point where I wouldn't be able to support my body without
Okay.
assistance.
Yeah.
Now I kind of was, talking about bad attitude, not being willing to adapt. I mean, I adapted to, not being able to eat. Uh,
Right. What year was that? Yeah, 'cause I wanted your age, and so we were back in the teenage years when you got your surgery
yeah,
for the spinal surgery for the scoliosis. Yeah, 'cause that can cause a lot of pressure on the organs, right? If you don't when you
yeah,
have scoliosis without the is that what happens? Your
um,
organs are compromised?
no, I didn't
Okay.
have an issue with that.
Okay.
I think many people do. You're right.
Okay.
But, my issue happened after my surgery, and, if you don't know me, I have a big head.
Is it
Uh,
big?
oh, it's massive.
Okay, I'm trying to look at the
It's
video.
it's
It's a even longer than mine, actually, and I'm taller, so maybe that's true. Maybe your head's
yeah,
big.
I've got, like, the biggest hat size they sell,
Okay.
and,
Fun
like, you
fact.
know those, like, one size fit all hats?
Too small for
They
you.
don't fit me at all.
No, everybody but Hollis. Okay.
Exactly. But anyways, so when I had my spine, straightened up and locked into place, I could no longer arch my back, and so I couldn't straighten my neck, and so I kept on choking on my
Oh,
food,
yeah.
and so I had a feeding tube put in,
Yeah.
as an emergency until they could figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
And then, I had swallowing studies done, and it turned out that I should still eat, but it needed to be, in a, like, thick pudding consistency. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, my family I didn't eat, like, already pureed food, like, I didn't eat hospital food or something like that, my family would just make whatever they were making for dinner and then put it in a food processor, and that would be my dinner,
I
so
heard that that was actually like, you think it's not, like, visually appealing, but I heard it actually tastes pretty good because 'cause we're all, like,
it's
just making puree if we're chewing well. I don't actually chew well, I should try to chew better, but, um,
yeah.
I heard that the puree was, like, not like, tasted pretty good.
It doesn't eliminate any flavor, and, you can even still feel different textures.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can have pizza, you can have lots of
Oh,
things.
yeah, I want pizza.
So
Yeah,
you don't have a feeding tube? If anybody doesn't know what a feeding tube is, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's like a little hole that it connects to a tube with a bag, and then it goes
yeah,
into your right into your stomach, like, it you don't have to worry about the throat and stuff. But you
yeah.
don't have that anymore? You're still
I do.
okay.
I kept it.
Okay, like a supplement kinda thing?
I use it for, as a kid and, young adult, I used it for things like medication
Okay,
and
like
hydration.
pills.
Yeah,
Okay.
'cause
Okay.
tasting gross medicine is gross.
Oh, okay. That's very practical. Just
Yeah, it is sad to
stick
kill
it
you
straight
avoid that,
in.
but I mean, you can still taste it because surprisingly, when you can still burp,
Oh, okay.
and you can still taste the flavors that you put in your feeding tube. It still, like, effervesces up
Really? I
yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, now that I am like, when I had my trach put in and my vent put in, I became, hospitalized, so
Right.
I now live in a long-term complex care unit of a rehab hospital,
In Ottawa.
and, and so I actually do have most of my feeds through my feeding tube. Uh,
Okay. 'Cause
now
peop because there's not staff to feed you? Is that why?
no, it's not that. It's just like when you first have your trach put in, you're even more susceptible to, issues like that.
Like
Um,
respiratory issues?
yeah, respiratory
Okay.
issues when you
Okay.
eat food.
Okay.
And a lot, but so I went through like 2 or 3 years where I didn't touch food.
Okay.
But nowadays, I'm getting a bit more, I'm getting a bit more experimental with food,
Yeah.
and the hospital is terrified that I do these things, but whatever. You gotta live.
Yeah.
And, my mom is even more terrified that
Right, that you'll
yeah.
asphyxiate or something or
Yeah,
choke?
but
Okay.
but, I mean, the more I eat, I'm not having any issues, like,
Uh-huh.
I don't get sick. I've, and I because I use a lot of, I'm getting into complex things,
Well, it's
uh,
interesting.
and,
Yeah.
stop me if I'm ever going too far.
But these are mechanics people don't know, like mechanics of
Yeah.
the trach, like
Yeah,
the
well,
yeah.
so the trach kinda gives me a breath every 3 seconds or so,
Mhm.
And then I use what's called a cough assist
Okay.
machine twice a day, and that is sort of like, if you think about it, it's sort of like a two-way vacuum. So it blows air into your lungs to expand it fully, and then it sucks the air out that it just put in. So, it helps you to get if you have anything in your lungs, like any secretions or, foods or that kind of thing,
Yeah, you can get food in your
um,
lungs.
it can just get it out. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And then I think you described to me when we talked before, like, how talking works because you know how you have people, like, they're like, "Don't smoke, kids, or you're gonna have, like, a robot voice. You'll have a hole out of your throat." So this is
yeah,
different for you because maybe it's a different hole. This is scientific Erica.
right.
But is how come you're able to talk with the trach?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm able to talk with a trait because for those of you who are looking at me right
Yeah,
now,
lucky
uh
everybody watching us.
yeah, so, there's you can see in my vent tube this little like turquoise thing,
Okay.
and that's what they call a speaking valve. So,
Okay.
it lets air in my lungs as the vent blows air in, but it doesn't let air out the other
Okay.
way. So it forces the air that I am exhaling to go up. And when it goes up, it has to go through my vocal cords. And that is why I can talk.
Okay.
But if I took out that speaking valve, I couldn't talk to you.
And then when you wake up in the morning, you're always attached to this? Like, you
Yeah,
always have this? Okay, so it's not like you wake up and you gotta get plugged in and talk, like, you need that breathing support all the time kinda
no,
thing.
well, I mean, they do different things for different people. Like, I'm one of the more high functioning people here,
Mhm.
and so I think I'm the only one who has only one setting on their vent,
Okay,
for instance. Like, some people have different settings when they're sleeping as opposed to
okay,
when they're awake.
okay,
Um
more intricate.
yeah, and some vents have or traits have what they call a cuff, and the cuff sort of cuts off the airflow to your vocal cords, and
Okay,
it forces the air to go back out into the vent, and so therefore you take your speaking valve out because they don't want you to suffocate. Um,
okay, right,
and but for me, I don't have a cuff
okay.
on my trach. They can't shut me up, Erica.
So you can wake up in the middle of the night, talk in your sleep, like, just, like,
Yeah,
call out, be like, "Get over here."
yeah.
Okay,
I can hit my cowbell and I can
yeah.
tell the nurse what I need and
Yeah. Yeah, because I can imagine being, like, waking if, like, you'd had the other setting and then having only certain times you can talk, like, that being a bit of a challenge.
yeah, and I remember when I was first in the hospital, it was a bit stressful,
Mhm.
but we got through it. Yeah, and they found like, "Oh, well, you're fine." So, I only have had one setting in my,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's and, people I feel like people they'll see a tube and they'll be really overwhelmed, right? Like, but it's like it's like
Yeah.
those things that boomers used to go hiking, those little
Yeah,
walking
yeah.
sticks, like, it's just a tool that makes life a bit easier. Uh,
Exactly,
yeah.
and I thought when I was a kid, ableism is a thing, and
Yeah.
even I had ableist thoughts
Uh-huh.
as a kid, and, I sort of thought to myself, "Oh, man, if I ever have a vent, I don't wanna live." But,
Right,
I
yeah,
mean
you have that, like, worst case scenario in your
yeah,
head,
but
right?
I mean, now I'm here, and it's fun.
Right,
Yeah,
because
I honestly don't even realize it's on me
you
a
get
lot.
used to it, right? Because didn't, like there was, like, a health crisis during the pandemic or something like this, and it was like, you can either live 6 months without a vent or else, like, live
Yeah,
longer term with the vent, or and your sister was you were like, "Well, either I get the vent or my sister will kill me, so I won't even live the 6 months," or something like this? Like, your
yeah,
sister's like, "You better get the vent."
so when I was, as you say earlier, I was telling you a story that, I had when I right before I got the trach, I had some serious respiratory issues during the pandemic, and my mom was really nervous about bringing me to the emergency room because my immune system is not strong at all.
Right, and
Um,
COVID, too
yeah.
serious for you, yeah.
Exactly, and so, they brought me into the emergency room, and I ended up going to the ICU, and I ended up being intubated. For those of you who don't know what intubated means, it's like, I woke up with a tube down my throat that
Yeah,
that was
that's
helping me to breathe.
scary, yeah.
And so when I stabilized, the doctors in the ICU sort of had to make a decision as to what path they were sending me on.
Mhm,
And they sort of presented me with two options. They said, okay, well, we are able to take the tube out of your throat now. So what do you want me to do with you? 'Cause if you take the tube out and you're breathing on your own, you're not gonna be able to, live, for longer than 6 months.
right,
But then they said, "But we can guarantee you with medication that it'll be an enjoyable 6 months." But they said, "Or we could send you to have a trach put in, and you can then live in a hospital or complex care unit for the rest of your life, but have a good life." As you mentioned, my sister was holding my hand as my doctor was telling us this, and, when the option was presented to me, she kinda, like, gripped my hand so tight, like, I knew, like, if I picked the, palliative
palliative care.
care, then she would have killed me on the way to palliative care.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so longevity, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's like 'cause this was, like, in your early 30s, you're facing mortality. Was that, like I mean, are you comfortable? We don't have this on the list of questions, but, like, what is your life expectancy? How do you look at death? Like, right? And you're probably around people with, like, pretty serious health issues as well, right? So,
Mhm.
it's not like, your roommates are not gonna or you don't have roommates, but your neighbors in your care center are not going to live forever, right? Like, how do you and
No.
having lost a lot of friends as well, like, how do you view mortality?
Yeah, it's, you know what? That's a good topic, Erica. I'm surprised we didn't put that on the list of
Yeah,
things to talk about.
yeah.
You're right. When you are disabled, you've got a fairly I think you've got a fairly different perspective on mortality. And because it's talked about in front of you a lot. So as we mentioned, a lot of my friends with muscular dystrophy with Duchenne's especially have passed away already. Like my
Mhm.
best friend Dino,
Yeah, he was awesome. Yeah.
he passed away when we were both 29. And so people with Duchenne's, their life expectancy is kinda 20 to 30, and that's not to say that someone with Duchenne's can't live longer than that. Like my friend Chris Minkowski, he is in his 40s,
Oh,
that
wow.
and
Okay.
he's got Duchenne's.
Right.
And he or not him, I, for instance, had Duchenne's muscular dystrophy.
You
Or,
have
oh my
congenital.
goodness, yeah, thank you. I have congenital, and congenital muscular dystrophy is, kind of like an umbrella, and it's like an umbrella because they don't really know what specific type of muscular dystrophy you have. They just know you have muscular dystrophy, and so, generally speaking, your life expectancy, when you have congenital is anywhere between 30 and 60.
Years old,
Yeah,
okay. And is
yeah,
that yeah, because you could die of the flu, like, you don't have, like, that your system is more fragile, so it's not necessarily I mean, this is
yeah,
Erica being a scientist, but it's not necessarily
yeah,
that you'll die of muscular dystrophy, but it kind of compromises your overall health so that you are,
absolutely.
like yeah, same with, like, cerebral palsy when you have, like, when you have high support needs with cerebral palsy, and it's just maybe not moving, it's, like, hard to get rid of
Yeah,
bugs
well,
and stuff.
absolutely, when you have a serious disability like I do, you're more susceptible to, having other serious issues.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I've had pneumonia a
Mhm.
handful of times in
That's
my life,
super serious for you.
and that is a life-threatening thing, like,
Yeah.
you've got a disability like me, I'm hospitalized
Yeah.
anytime I have, pneumonia.
Uh-huh.
Thank goodness I did not have COVID before I had
The
my
event.
breaks, 'cause I would not have survived.
Right, because the
Uh,
limited lung capacity. Yeah.
exactly, and, I had COVID this fall, but, I was able to get through it.
Survivor.
Yeah, yeah, Beyonce.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've got a very Erica, well, you know me, I've got a very, very dark sense of humor.
Mhm.
And I tend to joke about my own mortality a lot, and
Right,
my family hates it.
right. I have the sense your family's very attached to you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, you came close. You almost died during the pandemic, right?
Oh, I've almost had a number of times. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we're lucky to have you on a podcast, limited edition.
There you go.
It's a
There you go.
terrible,
But,
terrible.
because, when you have a disability, I now have osteoporosis and,
Right, yeah, and, like,
um
cardiovascular, it's not like you can do cardio, like, you can't
exactly.
do strength training, right? All
And you're
these
more susceptible to things like, diabetes,
right, yeah,
and, you're just more susceptible to everything,
yeah,
and, like, but then again, anybody is susceptible to death. It's just like,
yeah.
you know, air conditioner can fall in your head when you're
Oh,
looking, you know what I mean? But
I know, it's so crazy. We have no idea how anybody's gonna die,
yeah,
right? And then it's just like, when it happens, it's like a movie, and it's terrible, but it's also a little bit interesting, right? You're like,
that's
"This is it," right?
yeah,
Like, think of all
yeah,
I worry about people dying all the time. And, like, all my friends, parents, like, just, like, deaths yeah, all on my mind all the time, and I'm like and then when it actually happens, it's like, "Oh, this is it," right? And it's like yeah.
yeah.
Anyways
And that's but I think that's just, about attitude too, like, I mean, all of us are going to die at some point.
mhm.
Dying is a part of life.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it's like being
and
born, How are
yeah,
you gonna go out? Like, just, like
exactly, exactly, and it's all about, like, getting the best out of what you have.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe moving out of our, like, technical health situation more into, like, emotional stuff. Do people ever say things like, "Oh, it must have been easier for you because you never knew how to walk, so you didn't have to adapt to using a wheelchair?" Very and yeah, have people said that, or what would you say to somebody who said something like this,
Well,
Teachable moment,
I've had family members say these
right?
things to me.
Yeah, of course.
And I mean, they're mostly older people.
Yeah,
But I sometimes be like, yeah, you know what? Well, I'm not, I'm thinking in my own head, well, yeah, well, you don't know what it's like to have difficulty going to the bathroom,
right.
or like, I know a lot of things that you don't know how to do. And I think that a life of someone with a disability appears to be easy from the outside, but from the inside it's like a full-time job.
Yeah, I
um,
mean, yeah, to need care full time is, like, so much logistical things
yeah.
to take like, to handle. Um,
Changing your clothes takes
yeah,
half an hour as opposed to 5 minutes.
right, and you have to be, like, present to the caregiver, right? Like, we're all getting dressed. Gosh,
Yeah,
I, like, change my outfits all the time, and it's you have to be patient to somebody because they're there, but you might not necessarily be in the mood to be like,
yeah.
I know I want the blue shirt and, like, these pants, like, you have to it's just, like, that's a lot of patience, right? And nobody is patient all the time. I mean, maybe some people are.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, it's one thing about living with a disability is like you are never really alone.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, your mood is heavily influenced by those around you.
Yeah.
So if you are around a caregiver that day that is in just a terrible mood, does
Mm,
not want to be around you,
right, which must happen.
uh, your mood is not likely to be
The
happy go
best.
lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's really hard just to kinda keep yourself separate from all those things, yeah.
right, and with, like,
And just
the
stay in your own head and not in someone else's head that's around you.
right, because yeah, I mean, it's like caregiving, it's just it's not that it's a hard job, but, like, in certain contexts well, it is a hard job, it depends. All jobs are hard, right? But there's just a lot of presence involved, and when people are like, especially with labor shortages, people are just gonna be tired, you know? People are gonna be tired and stressed, and you can't escape that. Um, do you grieve not sort of the life you might have had if you weren't disabled? Like, did you like, as a kid, did you feel sad about it? Like, do you feel a sense of loss or grief about what your life might have been if you hadn't had muscular dystrophy?
You know what? In all honesty, sometimes I do, but not really.
Not a ton.
This because, like, life is life.
Yeah, it couldn't
My
be any
life,
other way.
I have never experienced a non-disabled life,
Right.
and in all honesty, I appreciate my life as a single person because I would have never met an amazing person such as yourself at, Camp Marywood, had I not been disabled. But, as a young child, I think I missed it more than I do now.
Mhm.
For instance, as a young child, I always asked my mom, "Mom, when am I gonna walk?" And she, had to stop herself from crying anytime I asked her that, and she would just say, "Oh, some people just don't, honey."
And how
Uh,
old were you then? Like,
I was
3.
probably, like, 5 or 6.
Right, like, you're, like, in kindergarten with your wheelchair and, like, all
Yeah.
the kids are running around, and you're like, "That looks fun." Do
Yeah.
anything, like climbing and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, but also, when I first had my power chair, I was the coolest kid in school
I know,
'cause
'cause kids, like, are climbing on, they're like
oh,
you're just zooming
fascinated by
around.
my chair. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
fascinated by my chair,
Yeah.
and, I had to admit, chairs in the old days were way cooler than they are now.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, not really, because, I mean, they couldn't elevate like this one does,
Right.
or tilt back, but my first ever chair was bright red leather,
Oh,
and it had
nice.
flames on the side, and it
Wow.
was the Hot Wheels logo,
You
and
can't do that anymore, or just that's
well,
just for
I
the
mean, I
kids?
think they can, but
Oh, come
I
on.
have not seen them,
You need some
recently.
stickers.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Maybe it's, like, less of a novelty. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and, it was funny though, cause like, that was before, cause now they have, like, custom seating for you in your chair so you're comfortable.
Yeah, like, the cushions are very specific, and they'll spend just
Yeah.
hours trying to, like, measure and make sure it's gonna be comfortable with
Oh, man,
some success.
they'll spend months, not
Right.
hours,
Like, oh,
yeah.
yeah, like,
It
okay.
takes a year and a half to get in your chair.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Like, speaking of a disability being, like, a full-time job, right? Like, just all
exactly.
these little mechanical things.
Exactly. If you think buying a new car is stressful,
Try a
oh, man,
wheelchair.
you have no idea.
And you don't have to pay for it, do you? Like, the government pays for it, doesn't it? Or it depends?
The government pays for 75% of it.
Oh, but that's a lot. The 25%, that's a lot,
It
right?
is.
Yeah,
It's a lot,
yeah,
especially when you are living on a disability
which is,
pension.
like, nothing, right? Like,
No,
it's, like, $5, like
it's not even enough for groceries.
yeah, no, it's not a lot of money.
Or
Right.
rent, and,
No.
and now especially these days, it's terrifying because someone who is completely dependable upon it, is now facing these new financial, situations that are daunting and scary, yeah.
Yeah, cause like yeah, it's, like, all of the physical stuff you have to take care of, but also with the financial stuff, it's, like yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot.
yeah.
Yeah. But do you wanna talk about your podcast, the 21st Century Disability Podcast? Because, yeah, I have another guest with a physical disability coming up, and, like, what your like, my mission with these episodes is kinda, like, to give a picture of disability as not, like, this enormous tragedy, which I think is your mission for your podcast as well.
Yeah,
Um, because I think there's just a lot of fear, like, unfamiliarity around disabilities. Like, I've done a lot of, a lot of work with disabilities, so I'm talking about it, and my friends, not everybody, but, like, some people are just like, they get nervous, and they're just like they don't wanna acknowledge that a lot of us will have disabilities at some point in our lives, and they're just like
yeah,
they really feel like that's the worst thing that could happen, right? And they just are like,
absolutely.
Let's talk about something else." But then there's also this sort of like and it's not like I disagree, but this sort of like, attitude where we're like, "We're gonna conquer the disability, and we're gonna, like, climb the mountain anyway, and we're just gonna transcend this enormous obstacle," and, like, sort of also, I feel a bit of a rejection of the disability, because it's just kind of like all about fighting and overcome and like just like, props to set a
Yeah,
goal and
yeah,
achieve that goal, nothing against that. But you know what? It like sort of this like alienation of the situation, like just kind of trying to avoid like just not accepting the disability and then you get sort of to like this like inspiration porn, like, people are like watching videos and being like, "Oh my gosh, she's so brave. If she can do it, I can do any" like just like a
yeah.
diminishing attitude, I guess. And I think you want to present a different narrative and yeah, like can you talk about how your disability has been a gift?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, everybody is always saying, like, "Oh, let's find a cure."
Right.
And, even if they did find a cure tomorrow, I would not take that.
Really?
No, God, no.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what? Like, I mean, I've lived a life that I am happy that, I've had a chance to live,
Mhm.
and, if I were to take, that cure, I would spend like, half of my remaining years adapting to the life
Right.
that I am going to learn how to live, like, I don't know how to walk, like like, it's not like you give me a pill and then I can go running out of my room.
Mhm.
And I don't know how to do a lot of things that someone who is able-bodied does. But a lot of the things that, I wanted to when I was starting my podcast, I started for 2 reasons. The first was a selfish reason, being that I really wanted to when I graduated from my master's degree, I had the opportunity to give a lot of, guest lectures.
Okay.
And so I was always wanting it was my dream to pursue a career in academia
Okay.
and give lectures and teach. And my mom always wanted me to be a high school teacher. And I mean, now I kind of think that would be a cool idea, but at the time, I was like, "No, I just wanna be a history I wanna be a university professor." That's
Prof, yeah.
well, and so what I did was I realized that it was a pandemic and I couldn't go to universities to guest lecture, so I decided to create a podcast and just start rambling, and
Guest lecture, yeah.
yeah, just be my own guest
On
lecturer.
Spotify, yeah.
Exactly, or
Yeah.
wherever you listen to your shows.
Yeah.
No, and so I wanted to, that was my selfish reason for starting it, but then I sort of started to realize that it could be a positive thing. It could be another way that I could turn into, being another outlet to be a advocate for disability and by informing people about different topics related to disability. And so I called it 21st Century Disability because A, I'm a history nerd and I got a degree in history. And so I kind of wanted to say, like, living in the 21st century with a disability, you have so many opportunities to break down barriers and live a much more free life than you would in decades and centuries past.
Mhm.
Because modern technology is eliminating barriers in our environment that are causing 99.9% of our disabilities.
Right.
And so I always say at the beginning of my every episode how the modern world is changing the way society sees disability.
Yeah, like, removing obstacles. Yeah, and your podcast is very informative. I think it started out, like, with sort of it was like lectures, like, just sort of, like, very well scripted, like, informative episodes on various topics, and now it's a lot of interviews where you're talking with your friend like, people in the fields, the people your friends sometimes, and, like, talking about niche subjects access points, like like no contact access to elevators and doors, like, there was a good one with Andrew about, like, sexuality and disability, right? Like, talk
Yeah.
about taboo, nobody wants to talk about that,
Oh god,
yeah,
people who are disabled don't wanna have sex. What are you talking about?
everybody wants to yeah, so,
Yeah,
yeah, like, just that was a very that was good, that was a really good episode,
yeah,
and just like yeah, just like sort of niche, yeah, topics people, of things you're afraid to ask, people things you don't even think to ask, right? So like, yeah, well, congratulations on the podcast. So everybody subscribe, like, follow 21st Century Disability Podcast. And now I think are you ready for the advice column portion of This Is Your Strange and Beautiful Life?
I am always ready for that.
Okay, so we have a listener question. It's a little fraught. Okay, so I'm gonna read it. Dear Hollis and Erica, So, I was born with a disability that affects all my limbs, resulting in loss of use for everyday life actions. Things non disabled people take for granted and that allow them to live independently. I don't have the freedom to be independent and I can't accept it. I don't know if this is appropriate because some are in worse situations than me, and yet they still have hopes and dreams. They even built a life. But it's still how I feel. No matter how much support I get from my family, friends, my therapist, I can't accept the way things are. I can't accept that I have to rely on someone for almost everything. I can't accept I can't be free to use my own body however I want without limitations or pain. I can't accept I can't be spontaneous, always got to plan every step of the day carefully. Everyone around me encourages me to look on the bright side. Oof. Other talents and skills I have. I'm good at math and I can draw, and things I can still do. But none of these will fix me or even fulfill me. I have a friend who's also disabled, and when I shared these feelings with him, he said I'm just comparing myself to others and want things I don't have. But that is simply untrue. I know what I want and the kind of life I'd want to build. So I'm here feeling like no one understands me or how I feel. And I don't know if you will understand either, but thank you for reading anyway. I have no hope for the future, just feeling sad every day, sometimes crying. Sometimes I manage to distract myself with fun pastimes. There's nothing I want in this life, in this body. I guess this is just a rant, but if you have any thoughts, I'd be grateful. Oh. Love, I can't accept my disability and I feel like nobody around me understands. This is a hard one. She's upset, or I don't know if it's I don't know the gender, but
Yeah, well, whoever that listener or viewer is, I feel I completely understand where you come from.
yeah.
And it's not an unusual feeling, feel that way. And my biggest suggestion would be to a you know find what, as you say, um, you, I think you said that they like to do art and math.
The good at math and drawing, and that's big. Those are 2
Those are 2
huge,
big
huge
things.
fields, yeah.
And so I was well, if you wanted to listen to a recent episode of my most recent the most recent episode of my podcast, I have it features a woman who has brittle bone disease,
Okay.
and she has broken 500 bones
Oh my
or
gosh.
more in her lifetime,
So much pain.
and she's, very small and not had a lot of difficulty growing up, because of inaccessibility and things like that, but she could draw, and she loved painting, and so she pursued that and followed that, and just what I'm trying to say is that some things that you don't think are very big or can't lead to many things, they can. Anything can.
Yeah.
And like that woman, for instance, Catherine on my show, she ended up going to university, has a graphic arts degree now,
Wow.
and owns her own business. And so her business is painting, images of people's pets.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little niche like that. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So, I definitely wholeheartedly comprehend what they're trying to say.
Yeah, lots of
Um,
compassion.
and I feel sorry for those negative emotions, and everyone has those,
Mm.
absolutely. But yeah, I would say follow what you find brings you joy.
Yeah, or even just, like, a little bit of curiosity. Like it's like there can be a lot of pressure. Like I would say, don't worry about looking on the bright side. That there's nothing like when has that ever helped anybody? When it doesn't work, right? Like
No, people when people say that to you,
it's obnoxious.
that is obnoxious.
Yeah,
I can't
just
stand it when
goodbye.
"No, you're just living every breath is a gift." No,
Thumbs down. No, thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
like,
No, there's bad days, and when you wrote this, you had a very bad day. This is a bad you had a lot of
absolutely.
feelings that were, like, you can't just snap out of it. There's ways to not wallow forever, but, like, it sounds like that was a real I hope that your day is not like this today.
Yeah,
Um
me too.
but, like yeah, like, there's sort of, like, my friend Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love, but she used to have a shtick about, "You gotta find your passion," and then people wrote to her and they were like, "Liz, I don't have one. I don't have a passion, and I feel broken because there's so much emphasis on, like, passion and purpose and, like, monetizing your greatest joy into your dream job," and, like, we don't all get there, right? But, like, just, like, a little thing that maybe you find a little bit interesting and try to do more of that and less of well, one thing that I think is like I wouldn't say, look on the bright side, but one thing I would recommend as someone who really can just drown in this activity is the comparing yourself is never
Yeah,
going to
that's never a good thing.
no, right? And we can compare like almost, when I don't have a disability, but I have been in this sort of wallowing state where I am just like there's no it's like no, this isn't what I like this is not what I thought my life would be like, right? And like just very it's a misery. But then going on Instagram and seeing all the people who seem to have these like just exquisite purposes, no, don't like just stay off social media
Yeah.
like, if you need to, like, just zone out, try to listen to This Is Your Strange and Beautiful Life, but listen and Hollis's podcast, but try to consume things that are, like, neutral to positive like,
Eh,
no social media, no comparing, and
no.
see if there's, like, is there, like, an audiobook you'd like to listen to? Like, is there, like, what are you sort of drawn to on YouTube? Like, what is kind of, like, what are you interested but, like, I don't know, drawing and math, like, these are 2 things that a lot of people are really bad at, like, just, like, terrible, right? Like,
Yeah,
these are
and
real gifts.
absolutely, and in all honesty, people on social media that seem to have these wonderful, beautiful, positive lives, off camera, they're miserable.
Yeah, they might have
Yeah.
terrible credit card debt. They might, like, they might be
Yeah,
constipated. There's all these things that we don't know about these people, right?
yeah,
Like,
constipation is the worst.
oh, it totally is. Yeah, in the field of disabilities,
Yeah,
that's a hot topic. But yeah, like lots of compassion too, because when you're having physical pain too, like you have to be really kind to yourself because that's like when you're in physical pain, like there are things you can do, but it is very hard to have like a good like perspective. Say when people are when you're very, very tired, right? Like really tired of physical, like, and I understand that that might like pain might be part of your disability, but like when it's really acute, then that's maybe not the time to solve your life. I'm not sure it's ever a great time to solve your life, but like
yeah,
certainly when you're like having physical, like just like more than normal physical limitations, like just make sure you're getting enough rest. Like make the choices you can make, like good health choices for yourself, like in terms of like food and water and stuff. Like sometimes when you're in this state, like a lot of influencers are saying this, it's like you need a glass of water. Like, you
uh,
need to, like so start with, like, the basics.
hydration is a huge thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how your life changes when you're hydrated.
Yeah.
What
So
happened bliss.
yeah, like, start small, and, sometimes it's just a very, very bad day, and sometimes there are bad weeks and months, like, there are even bad years, like, you can have a hard maybe not the whole year, but I've seen it happen where people have had bad years, right? And it's like,
Yeah,
you can't oh, like, it's just, like, this is a long game, and it's okay to write these letters, you know? Like, you could write another letter like this, and maybe
Absolutely.
it's a good idea to write another like, to sort of, like, check in with yourself, like, writing is a good outlet. I don't know if you're typing or writing by hand, but
And also, like, journaling too,
Mhm,
right? Like, it might feel like you're not doing anything, but journaling these emotions are huge. And,
mhm,
I always was told, well, I always, like, learned about journaling, but I'm like, I don't really feel like writing, I don't really see the purpose of it, but, and I didn't know how to journal really, but
mhm.
then I sort of started writing a journal in the format of a letter,
Yeah,
as if I was writing to a friend.
that's a really good idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Every morning, very embarrassing. I used to write journals, and sometimes journals for me could get a little bit too much rumination, like too much complaining. But I
Yeah,
did find that the writing, addressing it to somebody, whether it's a friend, can sort of take the just nauseous edge off.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
what I do, I write a letter to ChatGPT and Claude.ai every morning. I've been doing this for months, and they write
That's
you back,
awesome.
and they can sort of help you to get your thoughts, like, to clarify your thoughts. You can ask them for advice, and sometimes if you're really in, like, a circuitous, cycle a circuitous cycle, redundant, but you're just, like, in a cycle of misery, you will be frustrated with their advice, but I think, yeah, like, just, like, allow yourself an outlet and just, like, allow it to not be a perfect solution, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, learn to be comfortable with the imperfect world.
And don't look at the bright side.
No,
That's really fine. Like, maybe go to the sunny side of the street. But yeah, it sounds like you're
yeah,
going through a lot and, you need to be patient with yourself and have
yeah,
compassion. Yeah. And yeah, accepting your disability, like, sometimes we have to just like, there's a big movement of loving yourself unconditionally, and this is a wonderful thought, but most people I know don't really love themselves unconditionally. We
no,
vaguely tolerate ourselves, like,
yeah,
we're just like it's like, you have days, like, your days, like, you're like, "I'm cute and awesome." Great, right? But then, like, it depends. I don't know if you're a menstruating person, but the time of the month can really affect this, whether you're, like, so, like,
absolutely.
self-acceptance, maybe try self-compassion instead of self-accept like, it just sometimes we set a very high bar for ourselves in terms of what success is, like, even of course, it would be great if we all just loved ourselves, like,
Absolutely.
unconditionally, but, maybe every few Tuesdays you'll have moments, but I think you're just being very hard on yourself, so, yeah, I hope today's a better day, and if not, hit up the bed soon, go to bed
Yeah,
early, just, like
take a nap, take a
yeah,
nap,
take a
and,
nap.
also, like, if you don't have the energy to be I'm just learning this lesson
37
nowadays,
years in, yeah.
but, if you don't have the energy to be productive on, one day and you're needing to meet a deadline or don't worry about missing a deadline. Don't
Yeah,
worry about even if it's your own deadline, I myself can't stand, if I'm low energy or if I'm not wanting to deal with the world one day, I always force my way to power through and do stuff. But no, I need to learn to
no,
be like, Hollis, just sit back and watch TV. It's
it's not worth
okay.
it, yeah.
Yeah,
Don't fight
yeah.
yourself. Like,
No.
fighting yourself, you will not win.
I remember, back when I was in my undergrad, my mom, I would be typing for hours and hours and hours, and eventually my mom would come in my room and literally take my computer away from me without asking,
Yeah, time out.
and put my PlayStation in front of me, and
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, what?"
Yeah,
She's
no,
like,
it's
"You're working too
counterproductive.
hard."
Yeah, no, it is I think it is, like, counterproductive. It's not good for your thyroid to work too hard. No.
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 And your mental health, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, just be gentle with yourself as much as you can, but I have a lot of hope with your math and drawing skills and your writing skills too. Like, being able to articulate how you feel is a s like, is a capacity that will never leave you. It's not nothing to be able to reach out like that. So please reach out again and, let us know how you're doing. Hollis, I think we're almost ready to wrap up. But if you could transform and distill your life into a spectacular TED Talk, what would the title and topic be?
the topic would be thrive,
Thrive.
or
Yeah.
the title would be thrive.
Okay.
Yeah, because, as you mentioned earlier in this recording, my mom was told when I was 6 months that I would have an inability to thrive, and I've sort of led my life I've used that as, as ammunition to, sort of, have a life where I am thriving. And so I always like, at the end of every episode of my podcast, I say, "Please remember, if you're alive, you can thrive."
Hmm.
Because, and thriving doesn't mean the same thing for everybody.
Yeah.
Somebody who has a very severe disability, might be able to thrive just by playing a game
Yeah.
or doing a very simple task, but they're still thriving. And so I think that would be my TED Talk.
Yeah. 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 It doesn't have to be pull ups, like, right? It doesn't have to
Yeah,
be pull ups and a PhD. We can thrive from day to day. Like, yeah, I
yeah,
was talking to a friend about this. It's like, she was comparing herself to, some doctor who'd, like, was giving a bunch of vaccines in a bunch of countries, and she's, like, was in humanities and translation, and she's just like, "Oh god, I'm never gonna be, like, saving lives." But I was like, I really think the way we make a difference, I mean, different for everybody, and there are people who are saving the world, and thank you, but, like, really, like, whatever job I have, it's not often about the job, it's about the connections I have with the people at the job, right? And it's like,
yep,
it's about your friend group, it's about, like, for you, it's about the connections you have with your caregivers, like, it's just, like, that really I don't know, the sort of ripple effect of your life is maybe not gonna be these big, spectacular actions. I mean, and blessings to the people who are doing, the big, like, the other, like, sort of the more, I don't know what the word for those things are, right? The vaccinators, but I mean, some people are very against vaccinators. So,
oh man,
it depends. Never mind. We're not going to talk about that at
good
all.
RFKs and
No, 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 not
yeah,
allowed on This Is Your Strange and Beautiful Life. But, like, yeah, I just, yeah, so if you are alive, you can thrive. Kind of reminds me of my dance teacher, Lynn Adams, who's, I don't know, one of the episodes this from 2024, but she's like, if you have a body, you are a dancer, right? And it's just like,
yeah,
that's it. We all like, if you have a living, breathing body, even if you need a little help for breathing, you can dance and thrive and have a beautiful life. That's great. So speaking of beautiful lives,
absolutely.
maybe just tell people where they can follow you on Instagram, and I'm gonna grab my ukulele. Tell them where they can find you online. Plug your handles now.
Alright, alright. Well, for anyone who wants to learn more about me, they can access my website, which is 21stcentury.com. And 21st Century is 21st centurydisability.com. And they can access all my handles there.
Okay, perfect. So 21st century disability, and then you can find the Instagram and social media. Okay, and I'll plug
Yeah.
all this in the show notes.
And
Okay.
any episode of my podcast and learning more about me as well. You
Mhm.
can even read my master's thesis
Oh,
there.
goody. Yeah, yeah. What's your master's thesis on?
It's about, academic accessibility in the
Okay.
post-secondary universe.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, because yeah, you had a pretty good experience with accessibility and university, right? At Carleton University? Like, it was
Yeah,
pretty
yeah, yeah.
good. Yeah, that was super cool. Yeah, so follow Hollis, learn all about him. I'm just gonna adjust my levels here. Okay, so we chose a song. I think you guys are gonna know. Do you wanna tell people what song you chose?
I Wanna Hold Your Hand by
By
the
Okay,
Beatles.
yeah, it's from 1963, long before Hollis and I were born. So remember the key to the half bad ukulele segment is sing along. Um, Hollis, I have to say the hardest part is the bridge, so that's gonna be all you. And also
Okay.
my skills deteriorate 40 to 70% when I'm
Now, I
eh
must admit, I do not know the lyrics.
Oh, no. Okay, what are you gonna do? Can you Google
Can
them?
I can look them up.
Okay, yeah, look them up. Yeah, I forgot to
Okay.
send them to you. Okay, there's a short intro.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready? Okay. Um, that's funny. Okay, no, just a second. Oh,
Uh,
I tell you
Tell you
something.
something, I
I
think
think you'll
you'll
understand
understand.
when
When
I say that
you're
something.
something,
I
I
wanna
wanna
hold
hold
your
your
hand. I wanna
wanna
hold
hold
your
your
hand.
hand.
I
I
wanna
wanna
hold
hold
your
your
hand.
hand.
Oh,
Please
please say
say
to
to
me
me, you
and
let
let
me
me
be
be
your
your man.
man.
And please
Please
say
say
to
to
me,
me, you,
let
you
me
let me
hold your
hold your
hand. I
I
wanna
wanna
hold
hold
your
your
hand.
hand.
I
I
wanna
wanna
hold
hold
your
your
hand.
hand.
And
And
when
when
I
I
touch
touch
you,
you,
I
I feel
feel happy
happy inside.
inside. It's
It's such a
a
feeling
feeling that
that
my
my
love
love
I can't
I can't hide,
hide, I can't
hide,
hide, I
I
can't
can't hide.
hide. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you.
got that something. I
I
think
think
you'll
you'll
understand
understand.
when I feel
Say
that
there's something
something. I
I
wanna
wanna
hold your
hold your hand.
hand. I
I
wanna
wanna
hold
hold
your
your
hand.
hand.
I
I
wanna
wanna
hold
hold
your
your hand.
hand. I
I
wanna
wanna
hold
hold
your
your hand.
hand. Well, that was really remarkable. Worth listening to the end of the episode for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Hollis. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Just that you are amazing and that they need to listen to every single episode of What an Amazing and Wonderful Life.
That's so nice. Okay, yeah, and everybody back at you. Everybody, you just time to binge listen to 21st Century Disability Podcast with Hollis Peirce. Thank you so much, Hollis. You've been a splendid guest. I really hope I can figure out this video editing because, like, I think it's like addition. It's like a what do you call it? A add-on to my podcasting. And yeah, well, thank you as always to my darling big sister Tess Levitt and my Sherwin Tegia, my creative advisor, most cherished friend, and my dearly departed aunt, Eileen Gunn, whose surprise and generous gift has allowed me to pay for microphones and other equipment. Thank you for listening, everybody, or watching if you managed. If I managed to upload the videos and you managed to find me on YouTube, what a miracle. And so you can follow me on Instagram at erica.j.schmidt or contact me through my website, ericajschmidt.com um, slash contact. Oh, you figure it out. And definitely send your listener questions. And yeah, have a beautiful, strange and beautiful day, I hope, or do your best. If you're not having a beautiful day, take a nap, have some water, take a nap, start again. There's always tomorrow. And yeah, that's it. So are you ready to sing the theme song? I mean, you didn't sing at the beginning, Hollis, but I feel like everybody missed out, so you can try.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have to. Okay. Ready, loud, and proud. This is
You're the
your
strange,
strange and
beautiful
beautiful
life.
life. Okay, thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, Hollis. And yeah, love you. Love you. Bye. We'll see you soon.
Alright.